This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Thursday, October 3rd, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, my son, fellow investigator, fellow talk show host, journalist, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear an incredible program, 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news, analysis, information that you need to know in these perilous times. You're listening to the only show, I believe, where the news is presented to you in three dimensions. We look well beyond the headlines and the fog of the news of the day to bring you what the real news is behind the news. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. For the new listeners, want to welcome all of the new listeners. In fact, I had printed out several emails we received today from new listeners, and I left them in my office. I want to apologize, but thank you for checking in with us. For the new listeners, we do broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. We're on the internet. Our home base is HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're also simulcast at the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. We have a very special program for you tonight, a very special second-hour guest, a gentleman that appeared on True News a little while ago, some weeks ago, and announced that he would no longer, that was the last radio appearance he would make. And because of you listeners, he made an exception to that. His name is Baham Nassiri. He's a filmmaker, Iranian filmmaker. In fact, The Golden Veil is his creation. And if you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, we've hard linked right to The Golden Veil, the DVD. It's a tremendous story. But the story behind that story is the Arab Spring and the power shifts in the Middle East. Are they indeed the work of secret societies, in particular one secret society? We're going to be getting into that in the second hour with Mr. Nassiri.
Speaking of True News, Dad, you were a guest on Rick Wild's program today, and I started to listen to it, got about 20 seconds in, and stopped as he was talking about a story about something that happened on Capitol Hill. And
yes,
I had to go look into that, and I never made it back to the broadcast. So, chatters, don't spoil it for me about how he did. I will evaluate the program after the show, and no, I'm sure you did good.
Well, it was an interesting conversation that Rick and I had. It was we covered a lot of territory during that hour period. And Rick is such an intelligent man, Rick Wiles. What an intelligent man he is. What a godsend he is. What a great brother in Christ he is. What a great man he is. I got to tell you, I'm tired just from all the things that happened today. But we had covered topics from the murder of General George Patton. That's right, the murder of General Patton. To the murder, that's right, the murder of Princess Di, and everything in between, and then some. Not exactly what we had intended to speak about, so we kind of got in a left turn there. I want to make an announcement real quick here as well. This is for tomorrow night. Received an important message today. Just a little while ago. The guerrilla economist, is going to come on tomorrow night. Has breaking news that he wants to get into. It's obviously economic news. It's news about the current state of our economy. Somewhere along the line, I don't have the exact title. I will get that for you. I'm supposed to have it, but I don't. Which is how some things have been going here today, where it seems like there's documents that just kind of don't make it to their intended recipients, meaning our offices, and one must wonder why. But that said, tomorrow, a very, very important broadcast, kind of a interrupting everything for a very important show with V, the guerrilla economist. And, of course, Steve Quayle will be on with him tomorrow night as well.
Also, if I can jump in here.
Sure, please.
Next week, what we have ready so far is Dave Hodges is going to be joining us on Monday, and the Common Sense show on Sunday nights is his show. He has been really out there in the front and center of the alternative media with articles he's writing and things he's doing in the media. Tuesday we'll have Stan Deo on, as we do every Tuesday. And Wednesday we're going to have, for the first 2 hours, Reverend Michelle Hopkins back on. So that's what we have set up so far. We will keep you updated as to the rest of the week's schedule as we figure it out.
Exactly. And folks, right before, well, this afternoon, there was an incident that took place at the White House where a woman driving a black car, Joe, hop in here. She ran, allegedly, as the story goes, ran into a gate at the White House, turned around. Long story short, chased by Capitol Police.
Yeah, let me grab the story up here. But yes, she was. There's conflicting reports as usual, but initial reports were, and this Rick Wilde started to report on it, and with the information that was out at that time. At that time,
that's right. And Rick does pre-record by a little bit his program.
Yeah, and he said something that the woman ran a barricade, or hit a barricade, ran away, rammed the cop car, ran away from police, and shot at the police, and was then shot and killed. And there was a child also in the car. Well, come to find out, the woman never fired a shot at the police.
And we verified that as best we could based on the information we had. In fact, we must have fielded, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 phone calls specific to this incident with respect to information from one person on the scene. However, that person had less information, if you can believe it, than another person in another agency that was not on the scene. So we do believe that the open source reporting that the perpetrator was, or perhaps still is, I don't know if, are there any reports whether, we know that she was shot, but did she pass away, or do we know that for a fact, Joe? Anyway, she was a black Somali woman from Connecticut, and we believe her to be, according to the open source reporting, by profession a dental hygienist from Connecticut. And this, as the story goes, we also believe that she did have a young child, perhaps 2 or 3 years old, in the car with her. The motives are unclear. Now, see, folks, we're seeing these incidents take place here. I would urge caution, and this is why we don't like to, short of something like the Oklahoma City or 9/11, we don't like to immediately comment on things like this because of the potential for disinformation. We like to make sure all of the information is accurate. As you can see, the initial reports of shots being fired from the car, not apparently true. And then, of course, we have to deal with the identity of the perpetrator, the motives, the potential motives. Of course, it's difficult to read someone's mind, but then there's other evidence as well that we've got to look at. So, to me, this is still, and then to both Joe and I, this is an evolving situation. It's still under investigation. We're still trying to find out exactly what happened that in front of the White House. Was the White House an intended target? Was this woman acting with malice? Now, that question might sound absolutely absurd, I've heard other factors potentially might be involved as well. And I'm not going to get into speculation on this with respect to other factors, but suffice it to say, let's just see what, as the hours progress, let's see what comes of this story. Let's see who actually is involved, and we know what's taking place.
Here's what the latest from Fox News was: a chaotic car chase that began when a woman tried to ram a security barrier near the White House. And those are just stand-up metal gates, really, movable.
Yeah, exactly. And when you say near the White House,
those things block off the Pennsylvania Avenue,
right,
and the cross streets. You can't drive. I remember when I went to D.C. with my grandparents when I was young, and we went, and you could drive down that street and
on Pennsylvania Avenue and
right.
the side street, sure. Yeah.
And when we were there just this a couple months ago, we had to park far away and get a taxi and go down there, and we had to walk. And then you could get near the gate, but there was Capitol Police everywhere, and so.
Heavily guarded, extremely heavily guarded. And of course, when they say near the White House, that's like near is not exactly a term I would use. Near to me is 50 feet, and nowhere near that. Of course, there's a lot of frontage, a lot of security. The perimeter security is unbelievable. So the fact of the matter is, there was nobody inside. Unless, of course, the car was, filled with explosives, and there's no indication of that. Certainly, that no one would have been in danger inside the White House or the Capitol building, and that's something we have to be mindful of. But
the car chase, it says the car chase ended with the suspect being fatally shot near the U.S. Capitol in an incident that put the Hill temporarily on lockdown and caused one witness described as mass panic. Police confirmed late Thursday that the suspect was killed after being struck by officers' gunfire. 2 officers were injured, one of the Capitol Hill Police and the other Secret Service. Both will be okay. There was, as I said, a child in the back seat of her car, and as she rammed the car, apparently a cop shot at her, and one of the other police officers thought that it was her that shot, and they shot her and killed her.
All right. I believe the perpetrator did live in Stamford, Connecticut, from Brooklyn, New York. That's raw information coming. I don't know if this is open source or not. This is coming from a particular news feed that is an intelligence news feed. Yeah, okay. I'm just looking here. I don't see anything that sticks out at me that we really should necessarily focus on this at this particular point. But that said, and by the way, too, because of tomorrow night, Yoda's seminar, we're going to do a very special Saturday edition for this preparedness seminar, this preparation, this very unique material that's going to help everyone. More on that tomorrow. More on that. Check our website on this, because, folks, you're not going to want to miss what this gentleman, with magnified view, what Yoda has put together. It's extremely. It'll be extremely effective when things hit the fan and we are looking for ways to protect ourselves, or even in periods of relative calm. But one of the big issues is how to conduct yourselves, especially in situations where there is, for example, martial law, or there's a partial lockdown, or there is a sense of danger, or even perceived or real danger. So it's going to be an extremely important classroom-style presentation. And I got to tell you, Yoda has taught this course to the public. He's taught this course at different incarnations, if you will, to the public, but to officers, to diplomatic security. I've seen his government bio, and it's second to none. Let me tell you, it's just incredible. So, watch HomelandSecurityUS.com for that. Also, on the HomelandSecurityUS.com, we have a new Twitter account. It's
at Hagmann Report.
Right,
Hagmann and Hagmann, but at Hagmann Report is the tag.
Thank you for that. And our Facebook, our Hagmann and Hagmann Facebook page. What we're attempting to do, folks, is kind of consolidate. And that way we don't have 20 Twitter things going on or Facebook things. Try to consolidate. So there's one button where you can press and get the news feed or the Twitter feed for Hagmann and Hagmann Report, as well as our website. One Facebook where you can get the Hagmann and Hagmann Report in our Facebook. That way we don't have to. You don't have to go 5 different places. So that's new on our website. I would urge everyone to follow on Twitter. We will be. We're not going to. We certainly don't Twitter all of our activities, but I think some of the important investigations, what we're working on, the show content, show-related information, we'll be sending out Twitters on a regular basis on that, as well as new articles. New reports.
Yeah. We're going to play a short clip here of something that was broadcast today about what we talked about yesterday about the Army intelligence having damages done to national security because of the government shutdown. Here's a 1-minute clip.
I've been in the intelligence business for about 50 years. I've never seen anything like this. From my view, I think this, on top of the sequestration cuts that we're already taking, that this seriously damages our ability to protect the safety and security of this nation and its citizens. This is not just a beltway issue. This affects our global capability to support the military, to support diplomacy, and to support our policymakers. And the danger here, of course, that this will accumulate over time. The damage will be insidious. So each day that goes by, the jeopardy increases. This is a dreamland for Foreign Intelligence Service to recruit, particularly as our employees, already many of whom subject to furloughs driven by sequestration, are going to have, I believe, even greater financial challenges. So from my standpoint, this is extremely damaging, and it will increase so as this shutdown drags on.
Okay, that was Clapper. Shutdown damages intelligence mission. And,
and don't forget, Clapper is the director of national intelligence. He's a pure politician.
Yeah, and another piece of news on this government shutdown. This is from the Business Insider. Obama just played his big trump card on the debt ceiling, and this is more fear-mongering. Early Thursday morning, Potomac Research Group analyst Greg Valerie predicted that if the debt ceiling deadline grew closer, President Barack Obama would play his trump card in the debate. He would remind seniors that if Congress does not raise the debt ceiling, seniors wouldn't get their Social Security checks. Now, the article continues, a quote by Karl Rove states, "Surely it's just a matter of time before President Obama throws a game changer, warning the senior citizens that their Social Security checks won't be mailed because of John Boehner." Valerie wrote in a note to clients. A few hours later, Obama did just that during a speech at the M. Lewis Construction Company in Rockville, Maryland. He spent much of the speech warning that while the ongoing government shutdown was damaging, failure to raise the debt ceiling by an October 17th deadline would be even worse. In a government shutdown, Social Security checks will still go out on time. In an economic shutdown, if we do not raise the debt ceiling, they don't go out on time, Obama said. Now, so even if the government opens back up,
yes,
and they do not raise the debt ceiling,
there are two
saying
separate
that
issues.
Social Security checks won't go out.
Well, right. Now, there's a lot of fear-mongering here, too.
Social Security checks are not an entitlement. They are not something that people receive freely like welfare. Social Security is paid into by every working American who is a taxpayer.
Right.
Most people have paid into Social Security their whole lives who are receiving Social Security now. There are a lot of people who do abuse the systems, whether it's disability, Social Security, or welfare. But either way, to say that they're going to stop the checks if Congress doesn't do what Obama wants is, he's in dangerous territory here. And blaming it on other people, it's everyone's fault. Take some accountability and responsibility for yourself, too, President, as well as Congress. They need to fix the economy, but nobody has done what they said they were going to do while they were running for office, the promises they made, and we are seeing the results of that now. Something I want to touch on real quick.
Right. And don't forget, too, Social Security is supposed to be a segregated account. Where the problems come in is where the government has robbed, really, that segregated account from Social Security. That just keep that in the back of your mind. But all of the rest is a lot of fear-mongering, posturing by this Obama regime, such as closing down open-air memorials. A little clarification, too, from emails. The show tomorrow night is going to be 8 to 11, just to verify that. Okay, normal show time. Go ahead, Joe.
And I see some chatter and things about Rick Joyner. Some say he's misquoted in what he said yesterday about calling for martial law. I'm looking into this now, so if he was misrepresented, we will find the truth.
We played an audio clip,
and I still have that uploaded here. Yeah, let's play this. But people say it was doctored. But I'm going to find out. Here's a 1-minute clip.
All right. There's no way our republic can last much longer. It may not last through Obama's second term. There are a lot of people that feel that, it can't. There are forces at work right now seeking to undermine and to destroy the republic. There's almost a glib and almost a joyful disregard of the Constitution, a belittling of the Constitution. We can't make it without that. That's our foundation, our moorings. We're headed for serious tyranny. I think we've been used in some wonderful and powerful ways by God. We've been one of the most generous nations in history. We've done so much good, and that's why I appeal to the Lord. Don't let us be totally destroyed. Please raise up those who will save us. And as I've started telling friends for a long time, that no election is going to get the right person in there that can restore us, because the system is so broken, so undermined right now, the whole system. I believe our only hope is a military takeover, martial law.
Okay, that last part did sound like it could have been put in that martial law. Now, you're muted. But on the military takeover part, I'm not sure. But the Huffington Post is reporting this, that Rick Joyner is calling for military takeover and martial law. So it does look kind of suspicious, and I want to thank you guys who followed up on this.
But seriously, can anyone argue at least the 80%, the first 80% of what he said? I don't care if Chris Matthews said this, or Rachel Maddow, or anyone. It doesn't matter. If those were words on a piece of paper, can you argue those words? Can you argue the sentiment? Can you dispute this?
What he says in his own words from his own bulletin is, we are headed for martial law in America. What will follow will either be tyranny or a restoration of the republic. That will not fail if we do not depart from them again. The critical issue will be who is the marshal, or who the marshal is. Right,
but I guess what I'm saying to everyone is, people see.
I mean, if somebody really
when we get into the minutia of this, Joe, the minutia, when we start disputing and arguing and getting in the mud and muck and wrestling over things.
This is if I don't care if it was Ed Schultz and somebody put together a clip that made him depict something he didn't. I mean, I would not want to let that go uncorrected.
Oh no, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the first 80% of what he said. I didn't hear any type of discontinuity. Now, can we argue that our Is there any debate that we're not in serious trouble? And folks, I do realize how important accuracy is, and I understand that. I guess that was played, at least the initial part of that was played to reinforce the fact that there is an awakening toward that this whole system is broken. Our whole system is broken. And Rick Wiles and I talked about this, and I believe he might have played the clip. I'm not sure. At least he referenced it. But the bottom line is this: when we have a broken system, and people are beginning to wake up and see that it's broken, and see that we've been lied to, people are starting to see the bigger picture. This is what we're getting into, the bigger picture. Everything else aside, just take a few steps back and take a look at the big picture. How can things, for example, you can tune into MSNBC and listen to people say how great the economy is. It's recovering. The stock market is going up. Everything is fine. Obamacare
Don
is
from Colorado. Yeah, we will thank Bill Clinton. Don, thank you for this. Bill Clinton saying people will get used to communism. We will thank the government for health care eventually.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what can you say to that? But when you are looking at this as a whole, my point is the system is broken. People are starting to see it. They are starting to react to it. That reaction is what we are focusing on, and the awakening by people is what we are focusing on. Not in this case, not so much the messenger, although indeed, if the audio clip was in fact doctored in any way, shape, or form, other than for time, okay, then of course we would take issue with this, and
we'll find out either way and report the
Thank
findings.
you very much. But no, the system is broken, and we're a captured operation. People are starting to awaken to that fact, and I just that's the point. That's the big point.
Yes, it is.
All
also, in other news here, we have barricades. This is a new word. InfoWars reporter Paul Joseph Watson wrote this title, Barricades. Feds try to shut down privately owned Mount Vernon. Now, yesterday, we had some news that we did not get into about the U.S. Army veterans tearing down, we did get into it, but we didn't continue on to know. We learned that Obama actually ordered the closing of these memorials.
Open air memorials, right.
Ordered the barricades be put around them. So today there's an article out of InfoWars, Barricades. Feds try to shut down privately owned Mount Vernon, which is just ridiculous. The National Park Service erected barricades to shut down parking lots surrounding Mount Vernon, despite the fact the tourist destination is privately owned. Another example of how the feds are deliberately worsening the government shutdown. Mount Vernon is the former plantation of George Washington and is owned by the Mount Vernon Ladies Association, which does not receive any government funding. The attractions official website reads, "No shutdown here. The federal government may be shut down, but Washington's home remains open. Mount Vernon has remained a private nonprofit for more than 150 years. However, a dispute began when the National Park Service began putting up barricades to block off the facility's car park, blockading the entrance as well as a spot where tour buses turn around. The parking lots are co-owned by Mount Vernon and the NPS, but require no immediate maintenance at all, meaning the decision to close them came down to was completely unnecessary. The feds even blocked off a small area consisting of just 3 parking spaces. After blogger Stephen Gutowski exposed the situation, Newt Gingrich got on the act, tweeting, "The tour bus turnaround at Mount Vernon has been closed by federal police. This deliberate effort by Obama to hurt the public is disgusting." Now, it is kind of crazy to see them ordering the shutdown of public businesses, public places, just because they want to make things look worse than they are, and that is what they are doing, trying to make these the appearance of a government shutdown. Although it is bad. People do get pay delayed. They do get time off work, but some of those people who are not working now are still getting paid. So, sometimes you have to go through these things to work certain issues out. But either way, it is being abused and manipulated by the press and the executive branch. Also, something we did not get into yesterday, airmen of the Air Force, or airmen say Air Force is punishing evangelical Christians. Evangelical Christian airmen at Lackland Air Force Base are facing several threats and retribution for their religious beliefs, and some personnel have ordered to publicly express their position on gay marriage. There is an atmosphere of intimidation at the Lackland Air Force Base, said Steve Branson, the pastor of the Village Parkway Baptist Church in San Antonio. Gay commanders and officers are pushing their agenda on the airmen. It's a culture of fear in the military, and it's gone to a new level with the issue of homosexuality. Branson tells me at least 80 airmen attended a private meeting at the church where he heard them voice their concerns about religious hostilities at the Air Force Base. It was standing room only crowd. The religious persecution is happening, the pastor said. It's getting bigger every day. Gay and lesbian airmen can talk about their lifestyle, but the rest of us have to stay completely quiet about what they believe. Among these at the church meeting was Senior Master Sergeant Philip Monk. The 19-year veteran was punished after he refused to tell his lesbian commander his position on gay marriage. I was the first reporter to tell the story, and this reporter is Todd Starnes. But think about this sentence. I'm going to read the sentence again, because this is crazy. People who attended this church meeting, one of them was a man by the name of Master Sergeant Philip Monk, a 19-year veteran. He was punished after he refused to tell his lesbian commander his position or belief or values, what he thinks about gay marriage. Monk disagreed with the commander when she wanted to severely reprimand a new instructor who had expressed religious objections to homosexuality. The senior master sergeant was relieved of his duties after he refused to order to disclose his personal opinion about gay marriage. Monk, who wanted a spotless record, filed a religious discrimination complaint against the Air Force. When he showed up for a meeting about the complaint, he was accused of giving false statements and subsequently read his Miranda rights. He is now facing court-martial. Now, how crazy is this? In the U.S. Air Force, you have a man who did not want to share with his lesbian commander his position on gay marriage. He was then punished, relieved of his duties, and when he filed a religious discrimination suit against the Air Force and showed up for the meeting, he was accused of giving false statements, read his Miranda rights, and is now facing court-martial.
Just to be clear, he did not speak of homosexuality or anything but heterosexual. He didn't speak. He did not give his opinion at all. He maintained his silence. Is that what you're telling me? Where he just
decided not to share his views about how he feels about his commander being a lesbian. When she asked, he said he would not disclose that.
Okay.
So he was relieved of his duties, and then he filed a criminal suit or a discrimination, for religious reasons. And then he said, the commanding officer, obviously, I don't know what she said, but so this represented what he said. And
it's gone from don't ask, don't tell
to now a minority
to a perversion rules.
Yeah. Pastor Branson also told me he fears there will soon be a mass exodus of Christians from the military. The consensus at our meeting was that if things don't change, good men will be leaving the military. It will be tragedy for our country and military. It goes on to say that the persecution of Master Sergeant Monk and the countless unmanned individuals at Lackland Air Force Base should serve as a warning to all Americans. If Obama administration's Pentagon can take away religious liberty, they can take away ours. Also, you remember that person who was giving a speech on bullying, who called Christian people names, and they walked out when they were walking out on him. Do you remember that, Dad?
Oh, yes.
He was awarded one of the top atheist awards by some group this last weekend. And he was the one that was giving a speech on bullying and calling people who were walking out on his anti-Christian tirade, where he became a bully to Christians during his anti-bullying speech by calling them names. And then as they walked out, he was swearing at them and showing his level of tolerance, I guess. But you see how this culture is getting crazy. People are losing their minds. They are acting in complete opposition to what is normal, what is moral, what is regular. And we have the Pope leading the way. The Pope assured atheists a couple weeks ago that you don't need God to go to heaven. Just follow your conscience. Well, Pope Francis has stirred yet another debate with an interview given to an atheist Italian journal.
Marvelous.
Pope Francis cranked up his charm offensive on the world outside the Vatican Tuesday, saying in the second widely shared media interview in 2 weeks that each person must choose to follow the good and fight the evil as he conceives them, calling efforts to convert people to Christianity solemn nonsense. The Vatican heads seemed intent on distancing himself from its power, saying that church leaders have been often narcissistic and clericalism should not have anything to do with Christianity. A top official at the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest Protestant denomination in the United States, took unprecedented step of rebuking Francis, writing the Pope's interview was a theological wreck and Francis was dabbling dangerously in relativism. What these interviews seem to continually do is what evangelical theologian Carl Henry warned Protestants of in the 20th century, of severing the love of God from the holiness of God. Some conservative Catholics also have been taken aback by the interview.
This is ridiculous to think that the Pope, and see, once again, everyone looks. Remember Tom Horn and Chris Putnam being on our show when Pope Benedict resigned.
He came on right before,
I
3 weeks before.
Right, he abdicated. In fact, Chris Putnam.
It's almost like they wrote that book with the Pope telling them, yes, release it on this day because we're going to.
Isn't that interesting, by the way? I think it was less than 3 weeks, wasn't it? Or no? Was it 3?
Yeah, it was about 3 weeks.
Okay. But think about this. We had Chris Putnam and Tom Horn on our program, and 3 weeks later, them saying, essentially, that the Pope would abdicate his throne. And abdication is perhaps a more accurate term. Now we have, for the first time in modern history, let me be clear, modern history, we have actually two popes, one a Jesuit pope, the current active pope, and one not. Now, that's odd by itself, but then we had here most recently, I just wanted to mention this, on September 11th, we had Dr. John Hall on, and then 4 days later we had we're talking about mind control. And then 4 days later, we had that Naval Yard shooting where that individual, that Aaron Alexis, was saying that he had written letters and etched things into his gun about being mind controlled. So I dare say we are a little bit ahead of the curve here.
Yeah. And closing out in what the Pope said in this interview, asked if he feels touched by grace. I'm sorry, let me back up here. Parts of the interview that will be poured over the unqualified language Francis used to speak about faith in this interview was one of 2 weeks ago by a group of Jesuit publications. Connection to God doesn't seem to depend on church hierarchy. Asked if there is a single vision of good and who decides it, Francis said, each of us has a vision of good and evil. We have to encourage people to move towards what they think is good. Everyone has his or her own idea of good and evil, and we must choose to follow the good and fight evil as he conceives them. that would be enough to make the world a better place.
As he, meaning man, conceived?
Exactly.
Okay.
To move, and I'll reiterate that last part here. We have to encourage people to move towards what they think is good. Now, if we look at this from the what we see, eugenicists, they think killing babies is good. They think wiping off the population is good. So is that what we should be doing? And this goes on to speak of what he's echoing what he said a couple of weeks ago about the worst sin is violating your own conscience.
Do we have those anymore? I want to go back because thank you for that. I think that's extremely important, Joe, about what came out of the Vatican, because if you look at this three-pronged globalistic society, where will this one world religion come from? Well, I do suspect it'll come out of Rome, or be at least overseen through Rome or through the Vatican. I believe that the monetary system will be overseen through the City of London. And then, of course, the power structure will be overseen through one of the major power players, for instance, Washington, D.C., or it could even be the City of London itself, given they hold the purse strings. But I want to thank Scott for writing about this. When we're talking about the same-sex marriage, we're talking about the issue with the airmen and refusing to comment. Don't forget, folks, back in 1986, and Scott from Racine, thank you so much for pointing this out. Don't think that this is something new, because in 1986, the Supreme Court, there was a case, and folks, you can look this up yourself, Bowers versus Hardwick. In 86, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the right of each individual state to adopt their own sodomy laws. Well, Chief Justice Warren Burger wrote in his concurring opinion that society had historically held negative attitudes toward homosexual sex. And he even quoted Sir William Blackstone, his description of sodomy, as a crime not even fit to be named. Now, he also wrote, the Chief Justice also wrote, to hold that an act of homosexual sodomy is somehow protected as a fundamental right would be to cast aside thousands of years of moral teaching. His exact words were millennia of moral teaching. But think about this. In 17 years, in just a 17-year period in 2003, the Supreme Court directly overruled Bowers versus Hardwick. And again, folks, you can take notes on this. Write this down, because when you're talking with your neighbor who doesn't believe you, or if you need facts, here they are. 17 years later, in 2003, the Supreme Court overruled Bowers versus Hardwick in the case of Lawrence versus Texas. Again, cast aside millennia of moral teaching. In the oral argument before the court, Justice Scalia said from the bench that some were arguing that the case had nothing to do with same-sex marriage. Scalia said, don't believe it. Once again, we're talking about, in the Lawrence v. Texas case, we're talking about the specific laws prohibiting homosexual conduct. And the core argument there was, well, this doesn't have anything to do with homosexual marriage. Scalia came out and said, don't you believe it? Before Lawrence, same-sex marriage was hardly ever discussed anywhere, at least in public. There was no public discourse, or not much public discourse about it. Now, Scalia, in his dissent, wrote that laws against persons of the same gender marrying were sustainable only in light of Bauer's validation of laws based on moral choices. Now, think about that. Moral choices. That does indicate a conscience. That does indicate that airman in that airbase would have the right, as a human being, as a child of God, as someone created by God, to hold that moral, conscious viewpoint and biblical viewpoint. Scalia's prediction, and he did predict this, that the floodgates would open to same-sex marriage with that latest Lawrence versus Texas opinion, that invalidation of sodomy laws, was absolutely correct, because we had, let's see, it was Connecticut and Massachusetts and Vermont, all the New England states, it seems like, and we'll throw in Iowa too, had authorized persons of the same gender to marry. In 2008, just 5 short years ago, California just narrowly defeated an effort to authorize same-sex marriage in that state. Well, folks, you know what happened to that proposition, right? Well, Justice Scalia in his dissent wrote that the court has largely signed on to the so-called homosexual agenda. Now, if you take what happened starting in 1986, folks, think about this. Overlay the NSA. When did the NSA start collecting information on individuals? We know it began in 2004 through their own admission. If you listen to yesterday's program, I mentioned in 2004, as a senator during a Senate run, there were NSA intercepts of Barack Hussein Obama's portfolio, his communications. Well, you've got to think about this. Is there something else here at play? Could there very well be? Is the NSA apparatus really for going after terrorists, or is it really to assemble files in a Hoover-esque manner on individuals such as Justice Roberts? Obamacare is a tax. Affordable health care is a tax. And then to have Roberts lauded by the very individuals, by these conservatives who get sucked in to this mindset that there must be something there because, oh, this guy's brilliant, and of course, everything is fine. No. That's backwards. I contend, based on the research that I've found, what Joe read, that case that Joe read, if we go back to 86 with the case I mentioned, Bowers versus Hardwick, that upheld the rights for the states to make those decisions. And then 17 years later, Lawrence versus Texas, where the Supreme Court said, no, we're going to protect the homosexual agenda. They didn't say that, but you get the idea. You see where this is headed. Well, what happened in those 17 years? Well, of course, we had the immorality, but in addition to that, as it progressed, and we saw in 2008 what happened in California with the passage there, they narrowly defeated an effort to authorize same-sex marriage in the state in 2008. Well, what happened after that? We saw what happened after that. But what caused that? Was it a change of heart of the public? Was it this massive, all of a sudden, tolerance for this? No. And it goes back to what I said before. If you look at the larger picture, the panorama of the landscape, and Rick Wiles and I were talking about this today. If you look at the panoramic view, I think you will be a little bit disconcerted by what you see. I think that all of a sudden you're going to realize that this country is not only a captured operation, captured from within, but there are things taking place around us that, for example, that the media is saying one thing, oh my goodness, 90% or, a vast majority of people want homosexuality, want same-sex marriage, and in fact, it's a right, but the truth is anything but that. In Genesis 19, God records how he dealt with a community in which all men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house in an attempt to rape male visitors. Lot's house, folks, you recall that? God's destruction of Sodom. And basically the nearby towers apparently had fallen into Sodom's wicked ways. Well, we saw how God dealt with that as described in Genesis 19. Should we expect anything less here in this country? I think not. And he said, don't forget, the last days would be like the days of Lot. We could check in with Luke 17, verses 26 and 30. That's Luke 17, 26 and 30. Why, Doug Hagmann, are you reading or you referencing biblical passages? It's unlike you. Well, we've got to, because remember, the template, as in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Noah, so it shall be in the end. I think that we're seeing this play out the immorality, the issues from immorality to abortion, to same-sex marriage, and of course the pornography problem in America. And by the way, this Sunday, Pastor Langford and Steve Quill will be on this Sunday from 8 to 11 in a special spiritual program of the Hagmann Report. More on that. You can check the website, HomelandSecurityUS.com, and we'll tell you more about that. But all of this together, Joe, I think you struck a very important chord here. The things that are taking place behind the scenes, under the fog of and the Affordable Health Care Act too, folks. You've seen Hobby Lobby. I'm sure you've seen on the mainstream media where they're going to probably go out of business because of the Affordable Care Act, because of the immoral choices that they must make. They are being forced to make. The government is making them choose between paying fines in excess of, I believe it's $3 million a day. I'll have to double check that figure. Or submit to the immorality that is the Affordable Care Act with respect to abortions and paying for contraception, this force-paying system. They're putting their money where their mouth is. They're saying, no, we're not going to be a part of this system. You're not going to bully us. And that's what I think we all have to do. By the way, thank you, Michael. I also wanted to mention this, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Joe. We do believe this to be the case. I heard about this earlier, and I haven't 100% verified this, but apparently during this government shutdown, Obama, his government, is still keeping an Islamic museum open. Now, I'm fairly certain that's the case. I've heard about this in a number of different venues. I haven't 100% verified it. It's all open source at this point, but think about that. And remember, yesterday I had read 10 quotes about Obama and Islam. Well, there it is. So it's incredible. It really is. So I just wanted to make sure that people know that. But Clapper, you had talked about Clapper earlier.
Yes, I did.
Cannot guarantees America's safety during the shutdown. I just want to say that Clapper could not guarantee America's safety before the shutdown.
It's so true.
I have some notes here. And yeah, I mean, seriously.
We got about 5 minutes left before the break. If you let me just hit this headline,
please,
I'll turn it back over to you.
No, go ahead.
A cop shot and killed a Texas homeowner dead after he killed an intruder into his home. A Texas homeowner was shot dead by police after he shot and killed a career criminal who broke into his home Thursday night, authorities say. Dallas Morning News reports police did not realize the 57-year-old William Keith Hall was defending his home when they arrived, that Hall ignored the officers' repeated demands to drop his weapon. Major Jeff Cantor tells the paper Hall pointed a pistol at police officers and witnesses on the scene. Said officers and witnesses on the scene said they had plenty of time to de-escalate the situation. He was given plenty of notice and did not choose a path other than to confront officers. Hall also pointed his gun at a contractor working on a house nearby who called 911 after hearing shots. The caller, later identified as David Humphrey, told authorities that Hall was yelling at witnesses to get away from the man who allegedly broke into his home, identified as 30-year-old Jerry Wayne Haley, after he shot him. Humphrey said Hall tried to fire at the witnesses, but the gun apparently jammed. Hall had no criminal record, but a neighbor told the Dallas Morning News that he was a loner who lived in a hoarder's house. And I picked the story out not just because of the wording of this story. First of all, who is Major Jeffrey Conter, and why is he part of this police investigation? Why is there an Army sergeant, or at least a major, being quoted as being a major instead of a police? I mean,
you could have a major in the police department. Police
okay,
force.
Are you a major?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I mean,
on that.
Which city was that again? Tell me.
This is Dallas.
Okay, so yeah.
I didn't know major. I mean, I knew they had similar rankings, lieutenant, sergeant. I didn't know they had majors.
Okay. Now I'm going to get emails saying, "Oh, there's no major in the police force." Well, if you take a look at the paramilitarization, the federalization of the police forces, yes, some cities are adhering to the military rankings right down to, of course, not general, okay, but the more core military ranking. But again, that's a good point. I'm not saying that's the case in this particular case.
Even aside from that, this whole story does not make sense.
Well, think about this, and this is the other reason for the security seminar too. Remember, when you shoot someone in self-defense, it's important to know what to do afterwards, because the threat or the adrenaline that's going through your body, it's not like television. Don't think that you're going to shoot an intruder and then be calm as anything.
Right. No, but this story is so strange because this man, I would like to know if he was, confused. What was his actual behavior like after this when the cops came? Is it that he pointed the gun at officers, or is it that he refused to drop his weapon? Is it that he was still shaken? As officers and witnesses on the scene said, they had plenty of time to de-escalate the situation.
That statement bothers me, and this is why too that there's a specific protocol. If you're a homeowner with a gun and someone breaks into your home or is breaking into your home and you shoot that person and you call 911 for assistance, there is a very specific protocol that you should follow to keep yourself safe. And that protocol does not involve muzzling the officers upon their arrival. Now, that this is something too that our security seminar will get into, because it's very important to understand that when police officers get to the scene, 99.9% of the time they don't know who the bad person is upon their arrival. Okay, so if you're holding a gun and you are the homeowner and they tell you to put the gun down, if you don't immediately do that, your life is in extreme danger. You are in extreme peril. Even if you are in a state of shock, especially if you're in a state of shock. So you better know exactly what to do, because once you pull a trigger and once you take someone's life or seriously injure someone in a gun, when you shoot a gun, it's not like television. Believe me, there are things in your head that will go off that you never knew existed. It's not good. So this is something we'll cover later. One last thing before the top of the hour break, and before we bring our very special guest on, just to let you know, it's like anything else. Remember the centralization of records, the Affordable Care Act. Well, the first security breach occurred today. 2,400 Americans information of 2,400 Americans was put everywhere, out in the open. An employee of Minnesota's Obamacare exchange, Minnesota Assure, sent an unencrypted file to the wrong person. thus exposing improperly 2,400 people's private information. We're talking dates of birth, names, addresses, social security numbers, and so on and so forth, all given all at the mercy of an insurance company agent and other agents as well, and other people as well. So what you've got is one exchange, one simple push of a button gave others access to an Excel document, a Microsoft Excel document that had a lot of sensitive information in it, 2,400 people's sensitive information in it, and it just fell into the wrong hands. And that's very frightening. And if it happened this close to this vast exchange of information, it's going to happen again. And if that's how they're treating our information, and it is, as evidenced by this, then folks, we're in a lot of trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Hagmann Report on this very special Thursday edition. It's October 3rd, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann, with me, co-host extraordinaire Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We're so excited to bring on the next hour our very, very special guest. You're not going to want to miss Nazari.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. This Thursday, October 3rd, 2013, we are joined by our very special guest this hour, Mr. Baham Nassiri. Folks, you're going to love this story. He is a filmmaker, a former Muslim who has converted to Christianity. His last radio appearance was on True News, and I'm going to turn it over to my dad to interview.
In fact, I was on with Rick Wiles today, and Rick Wiles, Mr. Nassiri, sang your praises, said that you were just a fantastic guest, that we would just love you. We already do love you based on your product, your the Golden Veil, the DVD that you have out, and folks who don't know who Mr. Nassiri is visit HomelandSecurityUS.com. Click on the web, or click on the link to his DVD, and there you will find a nice bio about him and, of course, his work product. Mr. Nassiri, welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, sir.
Mr. Hagmann and Mr. Hagmann, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for the introduction.
Well,
I would also like to thank your producer, Mitch Santel, without whom I would not have been on this show tonight. And I would like to thank a 13-year-old boy by the name of Scott, whom I have never met. He watched my interview with Rick Wiles of True News and put me in touch with Mitch Santel.
Right.
Scott, I know you are listening, and long after I leave this mortal planet, I want you to remember that you played a major part in the enlightenment of the American people and the human race. Before we begin, I would like to thank your listeners for spending an hour of their precious time to listen to this interview. And I'd like to say that I lived in darkness until I converted from Islam to Christianity, and the light of Christ shone upon me. To those who believe that Freemasons rule the world, I say I was a nobody until I turned Christian, and Jesus blessed me. Jesus blessed my words to be heard through the Hagmanns. So, if you allow me, I would like to begin a short prayer. Father in heaven.
Please. Yes.
Father in heaven, I want to remember in prayer all those who have sacrificed their lives in struggle against tyranny and the search for freedom. I pray for their families, that you would strengthen and comfort them, that you would be provision to them, and that you would shower your mercies upon them. I pray specifically for those who perpetrate violence against the human race to serve their agenda, that they would be convicted and come to know the true light of Jesus Christ. I pray for justice, and I pray that truth would reign and that lies and cover-ups would be subverted. In the name of Jesus, amen. Mr. Hagmann.
Amen. And
amen, indeed. Wow. A very powerful prayer. I have to say that you're, we say a lot of prayers on this program, and for a good reason. Starting out this interview with a prayer, we're going to be talking about some pretty heavy subjects here. You're first of all, you're a filmmaker. You're involved in the film industry. You created a DVD, The Golden Veil. I listened again. I listened to your interview prior to my interview with Rick today. I was on his show today, and again we spoke about you. But I listened to your interview on with Rick. You go back in you take what's taking place in the Middle East today, the Arab Spring. We know that this was planned, but you take this back into 1979. Actually, you go back into 16th century Afghanistan, where these various groups have their roots. We're going to give you the floor, and if you can just kind of paint us a picture of what's going on today in the Middle East because of, well, who's behind what's going on today here? Because we know that there are secret societies at play. We know that the 79 hostage crisis was not what it seemed. It was created by Western intelligence agencies. So go ahead and paint us a picture as to what we're seeing today versus, or because of what happened so long ago.
Yes, sure. I will be delighted. First, if you allow me, I would like to introduce myself to your listeners. I'm an Iranian exile turned into an Iranian-American filmmaker, and now disappointed as President Obama opens dialogue with Iran. I produced a feature film called The Golden Veil, in which I have shown how the Illuminati operate and how they installed the brutal regime of the Islamic Republic of Iran in 1979 as the first step of the final plan for the New World Order. I shall explain this later in this program. I urge your listeners who wish to know more about me to type my name in YouTube search. And for that reason, I'd like to spell my name. My first name is Bahman, that's Bahman, and last name is Nasiri, Nassiri. Mr. Hagmann, I have a lot to say in 60 minutes. Therefore, I'd like to begin, if you don't mind, and I shall pause after each paragraph to hear your comments.
All right.
My reason for being on your show tonight is to make Americans realize to save planet Earth and prevent World War III, the Islamic Republic of Iran has to be exterminated. Following this interview, I will probably be the most unpopular person amongst Iranians, but I do not care because my fight is against a bunch of Palestinian sympathizers who invaded my country 34 years ago. They took Americans hostage for 444 days, and they've been chanting death to America for 34 years. Now President Obama wants to brainwash Americans that these people have suddenly turned into angels of peace. No, this is just another trick in their holy book of tricks. Despite all peaceful talks, the Islamic Republic of Iran is trying to buy time until they reach capability of manufacturing not only one, but hundreds of nuclear warheads, with one aim in their minds: to attack Israel. We have to understand the dangerous psychology of the Shiite sect of Islam. These people are looking forward to Armageddon. They have been brainwashed that the more they suffer in this life, they will have more rewards in heaven. They all want to become martyrs. They believe that in Armageddon, their Imam Mahdi, their 12th Imam, that is called Mahdi, will come and take them all to heaven. Now, let us talk about the plans for the New World Order. Would you like me to continue?
Yes, please. And this, folks, please pay very close attention to what is about to be said here, because this lays the foundation, and this will give you a greater understanding of that panorama that we've been talking about. Sir, go ahead.
To begin, I'd like to read a letter that was written by Albert Pike to an Italian revolutionary by the name of Mazzini, dated August 15, 1871, in which he outlined his vision of 3 world wars, which would ultimately bring about a one-world government. Albert Pike was the Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry in the 19th century. He was born December 29, 1809, and died April 2, 1891. The letter was displayed at the British Museum in London for a short period before it was removed. It goes on to say, the First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and German empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Germany is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism destroy each other. Now, please remember that Albert Pike died in 1891. His predictions on World War I and World War II came true exactly, and remains to be seen if his predictions on World War III will also be as accurate. Mr. Hagmann, I do not believe that Albert Pike had the power of prophecy to predict things so accurately. Therefore, I strongly believe that Albert Pike's writings were based on his knowledge of a master plan that was drawn long before World War I.
I agree. And
you
Steve
agree?
Quayle, yes, as a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard Steve Quayle, you've heard various people like Tom Horn, others talk about the letter from Albert. 3 world wars is just not fiction. This is, in fact, dead-on accurate information being provided. World War I was an extension of World War II was an extension of World War I, and of course, World War III is going to be a result of, Sir, World War III is going to be an extension of what happened right after World War II in terms of the much like the League of Nations, the United Nations, the entire carving up of Europe is really going to, or it plays a very significant part in World War III, in the upcoming World War III. right? I mean, that's part of it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. And the secret societies behind this, by the way, the Illuminati behind this is not a very insignificant. It's not very insignificant. It's very significant, as a matter of fact. The Great Britain's role, France, the United States, the Illuminati, the secret societies, very, very critical in understanding what has taken place after World War II.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Would you like
continue,
me
sir.
to
Yes,
continue?
Please. Yes.
Okay. Now, I became a Freemason in Iran in 1974 at the age of 21. Following the Iranian Revolution of 1979, I settled in Oxford, England, and having graduated from Oxford Brookes University in the field of building technology, I formed a company specializing in renovation of historical buildings in and around Oxford. During this time, I joined the Oxford Masonic Lodge at 333 Banbury Road, Oxford. In 1991, after divorce, I came to the United States, and a few years later, I joined the Masonic Lodge number 693 in Palm Springs, California, where President Gerald Ford was a member. In 2005, at the age of 52, I received my 32nd degree of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. I was honored to be a Freemason for 31 years of my life and also served as a Shriner. Having climbed up to the 32nd step of King Solomon's Temple, I knew that the 33rd step would lead me to the lodge above, where I would be illuminated. However, I realized that no Freemason of the 33rd degree had ever entered the lodge above, which some scholars have called it the Illuminati. And in fact, every Mason I spoke to believed that it never existed, until I met an illuminated brother who was one of my father's best friends, and he told us everything. 4 months ago, on Rick Wiles' True News interview, without mentioning the brother's name, my tongue slipped, and I did say that the man lived in Washington, D.C., and he was Iranian. 3 weeks later, they found him dead in his apartment. I was relieved to hear that cause of death was heart attack. His tongue wasn't cut off by the root, and his heart remained intact. The information that I gathered from this brother for over a decade has been written and placed in a secret location with full documents and a long list of members to be released upon my death, not by any member of my family, but by a lawyer who resides outside of California. This will be published and released as a book called The Golden Mask. This action will guarantee my safety while I am alive, since the book will only be released upon my death. And until such time, Mr. Hagmann, I will be regarded as just another conspiracy theorist. What I learned from this brother is as follows. I will pause here in case you would like to.
I'm just stunned. Mr. Nassiri, I'm stunned at the fact that when you were on Rick Wiles, you happened to merely mention the ethnicity and the location of your source, and what you're saying tonight. And that interview was not that long ago. What you're saying tonight was 3 weeks after that interview. He was found dead, and of course, you do suspect murder from this for obvious reasons. Now, wow. I'm just
I know,
stunned.
but
I'm stunned.
in my inner heart, I truly want to believe that it was just coincidental and the cause of death was natural heart attack. If you don't mind, I'd like to continue.
Yes, please, please.
The structure of Freemasonry is brilliant. Good men are initiated to become better men. And indeed, they do become better men. And the best of them become Shriners to help unfortunate children through the Shriners' hospitals. Some who reach the 32nd degree or even the honorary degree of the 33rd realize that they know nothing but some ancient stories, philosophical thoughts, mathematics, and geometry. Brethren are made to believe that the highest degree is the 33rd, and there is nothing beyond that, but there is. There is a lodge above the lodge of the double-headed eagle, and it's called Lodge of the Eagles. Call them Illuminati, Bilderberg, or what you may, but their true name is the Eagles. The most secret brotherhood with less than 1,000 members who are the most powerful bankers, arms manufacturers, and oil barons. And these are the men who rule upon us. Now, imagine a pyramid. 7 billion people on Earth lie at the bottom of the pyramid. They are considered not to be important. Good Masons occupy the main part of the pyramid. And a small top section, which carries the all-seeing eye, is occupied by the eagles. But there is a section between the Masons and the eagles, which is occupied by two other secret societies, the Skull and Bones and the Roshaniah. Would you like me to continue?
Yes, sir, please. You've got the floor.
Okay. I'd like to talk about the Roshaniah and the Skull and Bones, the Roshaniah and the Skull and Bones connection before revealing what I know about the eagles. First, let me spell the word Roshaniah. That's Roshaniya, which means Illuminati in Afghan and Persian language. The 16th century saw the rise of a very powerful secret society based upon a secret cult in the mountains of Afghanistan called the Roshaniya, meaning the illuminated ones. References to the existence of this mystical fraternity exist from the time of the House of Wisdom at Cairo, several hundred years before. In fact, the Roshaniya are just a later emergence of the old cult of the assassins. To learn full history of the Roshaniya, please type the word Roshaniya in YouTube and watch a video which I uploaded 8 months ago titled Illuminati Exposed 2013-The Roshaniya. Now please listen to this carefully. The Roshaniya is the sister branch of the Skull and Bones. Osama bin Laden was a member of the Roshaniya, and George W. Bush a member of the Skull and Bones. This is useful information for those who believe 9/11 was an inside job. Osama bin Laden joined the Roshaniya at the age of 21, although he would never admit to it. And he played a major part in kicking Russians out of Afghanistan. Later, he formed what is known as Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is also controlled by the Eagles. Now, back to the Eagles. Any comments? Hello?
No.
Yeah.
No. That's fine. There was a delay there. I apologize.
There is a question about the eagles. The eagle symbolism that is used. Also, with that, were there any special types of rings these people wore?
I don't know about rings.
Okay, that was a listener question. I just wanted to make sure I got that in. Go ahead and continue.
Well, I mean, most definitely they will have certain jewels, including rings, because they are very similar to the Freemasons. Now, the eagles make presidents and remove those presidents who disobey their orders, such as JFK through assassination and Jimmy Carter through the Iran hostage crisis, as I have shown in my feature film, The Golden Veil. The eagles meet in secret inside a temple in Washington, D.C. They have rituals very similar to Freemasons, as shown in my unpublished book called The Golden Mask. The eagles' ultimate plan is the establishment of a new world order, to be completed through a third world war. This war will begin over the Middle East and spread. The plan of the eagles is to enable Iran's manufacture of nuclear warheads behind the scenes, while on the surface they will be watched, or they may be watched by IAEA, etc. Final agenda is for Muslims and Jews to wipe each other out, as Albert Pike wrote. I would like to add here, it is not important for Iran to manufacture one nuclear head against Israel's 200 warheads. What is most dangerous is for Iran to have the knowledge and capability to manufacture hundreds of nuclear warheads in a very short frame of time. Many intelligent people are wondering why dictators are overthrown by the United States, Britain, and France, only to be replaced by Islamic fanatics. This is exactly the plan of the eagles, which began with the overthrow of the Shah of Iran in 1979 and bringing an illiterate Islamic fanatic called Ayatollah Khomeini. The aim is to create the big enemy. To make big war, you need big enemy. To create big enemy, you need differences in race, religion, and political systems. To make war, you need economic depression. To make war, you need to create hatred. Chantings of death to America and death to Israel for 34 years by the Islamic Republic of Iran is an example of that. Attacking embassies, taking hostages, and large-scale terrorist attacks are other tools used. Over the next couple of years, until the big enemy is created, terrorism will enter new dimensions, created by the eagles as false flags. Americans should be ready for a biochemical attack on U.S. soil. Is it not sad?
Wow.
Is it not sad to think that in the 21st century, less than 1,000 people rule upon 7 billion people, Mr. Hagmann?
It's definitely sad on a lot of levels, yes. And I wonder, is it our complacency, or is it the magnitude of the lies, sir?
It's the magnitude of the lies, and it's the fact that people do not believe the things that some people know and say. They immediately label them as conspiracy theorists, and no one takes them seriously.
Wow.
The Islamic Republic of Iran was created in 1979 by the eagles as the first step of the final chapter towards the establishment of the New World Order. The Eagles' plan for a New World Order will result in a total invasion of the Middle East after Jews and Muslims wipe each other out and after the nuclear fallout or black rain ends. The war will begin when the whole of the Middle East turns into Islamic fundamentalist republics like in Iran, anti-American and anti-Israel. If, according to Albert Pike's writings, Muslims and Jews have to wipe each other out, Iran must be allowed to manufacture its nuclear heads, not one, but 200 of them. But first we have to look at the nuclear balance, and that's a research that I carried out. When you're ready, I will go through that.
I'm going to let you go ahead and, at your leisure, at your timing, you go ahead. You've got the floor. You're doing very well.
Thank you. If we exclude North Korea's 10 nuclear warheads, U.S., Britain, and France balance China and Russia with 8,500 nuclear heads on each side of the scale. India and Pakistan balance each other out with 100 nuclear warheads on each side of the scale. We are left with 200 warheads owned by Israel and nothing on the other side of the scale. Now, let me say that the only reason Israel has remained safe is because of this nuclear imbalance. If Iran develops atomic weapons, I can assure you that Israel will be threatened in no time, and World War III will break out. We are at a crucial point in the history of mankind, and the only way to prevent such disaster is to support Israel to negate Iran's ability to pursue its ambition. In time, even Iranians will understand the importance of my concerns aimed at preventing an all-out war. And Mr. Hagmann, this is due to the psychology of the Shiite sect of Islam, because they are looking forward to Armageddon. They would want to, if they have those atomic weapons, they would want to begin that war. Their psychology is different. If we had atomic weapons at the time of the Shah, we would all have been safe. Israel and Iran were friends, good relationships, but now the problem is this fanatical, crazy, psychopathic regime in Iran that is danger to civilization. Now, I was thinking, if Winston Churchill had not succeeded in persuading Roosevelt to join in, Hitler would have won, and we would not have had Jewish people on earth today. If Israel fails to persuade President Obama to stand up against the third Antichrist, Iran will soon manufacture its nuclear heads, and Albert Pike's predictions will come true. And that is the wish of the Eagles. I would also like to answer a question often asked, that if the plan of the Eagles results in destruction of Israel, how come there are some famous Jewish families in the elite club? I will not mention names, but I'm sure, Mr. Hagmann, you know plenty
Yes.
of them.
Yes.
I have a very logical answer to this question. In the same way that the Iranian elite billionaires, such as Khamenei and Rafsanjani, etc., they do not care about the Iranian people, and in the same way that the elite in the United States do not care about the American people, those Jewish families would not care about the Jewish people either. when it comes to money and power, there is no patriotism. If the world populace listen to this broadcast, perhaps they may realize there are a few hundred families who rule upon 7 billion people, and if we cannot rise up against them and destroy their weapons of mass destruction, if we cannot have the courage to destroy the demons and stop the massacre of our children, then our existence is worthless. Mr. Hagmann and Mr. Hagmann, I have released the truth as I know it. May the great architect of the universe prove me wrong, and may Christ save us all if I am right.
We hope and pray for the latter, for sure. Now, you mentioned a couple of things in particular about the number of families, the number of people in the elite Eagles. We have gotten so many questions here for you. Certainly feel comfortable with answering only those questions that you feel comfortable answering. And if you decline to answer a question, certainly we understand based on the sensitive nature of what we're talking about.
Sure.
Now, that said, one of the questions, and this is one I've got, is why is the United States in actually doing the bidding of Saudi Arabia pushing so hard to war with Syria? Where does that fit into the grand scheme of plans?
Okay, the Syrian situation is very interesting because you see, as I mentioned, the big plan is to turn all these Middle Eastern countries into fanatical Islamic republics like Iran. Now, the Assad regime is not a fanatical Islamic regime like Iran. They are friends, the two countries. However, that's not exactly true either, because Iran actually has been supplying arms to the rebels, and on the other hand, it's been sending soldiers and helping the Assad regime. It's
exactly
right. So
like
Iran would not
chess.
care. Iran would not really care if Assad falls, and even a more fanatical regime gets in power. So the plan is that. That's why they were trying. They were trying to bomb Syria and get rid of Assad, and then pull out like the other countries like Iraq, like Libya, etc. Libya, 3/4 of Libya is in the hands of Al Qaeda.
Correct.
And they want the same thing to happen in Syria, to get rid of Assad and let Al Qaeda and the rebels get in. In Egypt, they succeeded. They installed Islamic Brotherhood, but people rose up and there was a coup. But I bet you the coup will not last. I bet you Islamic Brotherhood will get back in. So the big plan is to turn these countries into Islamic republics one by one. Now, I did mention in Rick Wild's interview that Saudi Arabia actually is a big question for me. Whether this, because Saudi Arabia is the biggest oil producing country in the world, and whether this the rise of the Arab Spring will get into Saudi Arabia also or not, because already there are sleeper cells inside Saudi Arabia, and I just have the feeling that the big thing that's going to happen is going to be on Saudi Arabia. But I don't know. That is a big question in my mind, whether it's going to spread to Saudi Arabia or not. Does that answer part of the question?
Indeed it does. And according to one intelligence source that I've got, he said the same thing, almost identical to what you said. because of the asymmetry of this war that's being fought, this New World Order, watch perhaps the blowback. Something happened in Saudi Arabia. We already saw an assassination attempt there with that gentleman using a body-worn explosive device that was actually impacted, and pardon me, folks, for being gross here, but in his rectum. We saw that assassination attempt. So there could very well be something to happen with Saudi Arabia. So we have to watch that close. Now, Ken from Enid, Oklahoma asks, and again, sir, these questions are really in no specific order. I'm just taking them as I get them.
Sure.
Is the Club of the Eagles, is this because of their existence and because nothing was done over multiple administrations to stop the arming of Iran with the bomb? Is it because that high-ranking members of our administration were in fact and are in fact part of the Eagles?
Well, of course.
Okay. I mean, in other words, they let this. The United States has allowed Iran to get to this point.
Of course, and the plan is to enable Iran to, behind the scenes, to get to that stage of being capable of suddenly come out with the manufacture of hundreds of nuclear warheads.
Okay.
Now,
all right.
Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel knows this threat. Israel has the right to defend itself and has the right to put Iran back into the trying to get there. These Iranians have to understand that this will be a good thing. If Israel bombs Iran's nuclear stations and all that, it will be a good thing, because otherwise Iran, I'm sure thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Iranians may be listening to this interview. I want them to understand that if nothing is done, there will be no more Iran or Persia left, because then there will be an all-out atomic war, and that will put the final nail in the coffin of our country. The Mullah regime has already killed our country, and if that happens, that will be it.
Okay. And that's a frightening prospect indeed. Wow.
Iran has to be stopped to prevent the big plan of the Eagles to flourish. You see, I'm not making all this up. That's why at the beginning of this interview, I read the writings of Albert Pike. Albert Pike wrote it all down in detail, and we are heading that way, and we are close to it. We are close to the end. End time.
Right, and Margaret from the state of Washington wants me to ask, in your view, how close are we to the, if they succeed in, if they're not stopped, if the plans are not stopped, how close are we to seeing this conflagration that you speak of, that Albert Pike wrote about? How close are we to World War III?
I think between a year to 2 years. We are that close.
Wow. Mr. Nasiri, another listener question. Somebody wants to know what you think, what your opinion is of Mr. Obama and what his role is.
My opinion of President Obama, I respect him. He's a great man. He's a good man. But he has to obey his orders that come from above him.
Interesting.
That's all I can say.
He's a puppet like everyone else in that
Every
position.
Every president is. Mr. Hagmann, American people are very honest people. and they believe that in this country we have 100% freedom, and we choose our presidents. Those candidates that you vote for in the end, okay, it makes no difference which one gets in, because they are both part of the club. The elections are only a way to fool the people. Not many Americans are going to like hearing this, but it's true.
Okay.
I better not say any more. I better not say any more, or tomorrow I'll be kicked out.
Mr. Nassiri, we have 10 minutes left of this hour, and you're welcome to stay into the next hour if you have time or would like to. I'd like to hear your story of how you came to Christ, if you would like to share that, if that's something you want to talk about.
Sure. I grew up in Iran, and I was born to be a Muslim. And as I grew up, I realized that no matter how hard I forced myself to believe the things they believe in, I just couldn't believe them, because the stories are just so crazy. But the main reason was because I realized that Islam is a religion based on the power of sword and killings and all this. And when I studied Christianity and read a bit of Bible and all that, I realized that Christianity is all about forgiveness and the good things. And a lot of my friends have criticized me, saying, "Oh, what are you talking about? Christianity has been responsible for many, many deaths. How about the Crusades and this and that?" I said, yes, but all that was not the message of Christ. Okay?
Yes. So and there you have it. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. So a few months ago, I turned Christian, and there's a video on my personal YouTube channel that actually shows the procedure of me becoming Christian. I have two YouTube channels. One is for my movie, The Golden Veil.
Okay.
And then I have a private YouTube channel where these interviews all go there, and that is under the name Hagmann Nassiri, under my name on YouTube. But you see, the Islamic religion, the things they believe in, I just cannot believe all these things, like, treat women badly, all this doesn't matter when you die. If you become martyr, you go to heaven, and there are 72 virgins waiting for you. Each one is 43 meters tall. Oh my God! I find it hard to take care of a 5'6" one. 72 virgins. Can you imagine 43 meters tall? And there are rivers of milk and rivers of honey. And, so I realized all this when I was only 15 years old or so, that they are promising, they promised the Arabs in 1400 years ago in the desert, they didn't have enough milk or honey or all the good things they didn't have. They promise Muslims all these things, and then they brainwash them with all this. So these people are looking forward to blow themselves up and become martyrs, and because the 72 virgins are waiting for them. I mean, for a human mind of the 21st century to believe any of this is just unbelievable to me.
Wow.
They brainwash children. I'll give you this, I'll tell you this, which is very sad. What happened during the Iran-Iraq war? There was a field that was that Saddam Hussein's army had placed mines on this field. It was full of mines, and the Iranian forces had to clear this field to cross this field. And so on one end of the field, they put a man on a white horse with a battery-operated neon halo around his head, and on the other side of the field, they got between 12 to 15-year-old little boys, and they put the keys of heaven around their necks, and they pointed to the man on the horse, and they said, "Hey, that is Imam Mahdi, the one with the 12th Imam that's coming." And so the children, now you see 12 or 15-year-old children brainwashed like that, thinking, "Oh, there is Mahdi, he's going to take us to heaven." And they all ran across the field, and they cleared all the mines with their blood. Isn't that sad?
Incredibly so. And to think, to even comprehend that, it's beyond human comprehension. No, it's sad. Indeed, it is. I've got a specific question for you. This has to do with, I interviewed 2 of the hostages who were held for 444 days. 2 of the 52 American hostages I interviewed. Both had said that Ahmadinejad was one of the architects of the Iranian, takeover of the American embassy. As far out of a question as that is, was he part of that takeover?
The Rosh Hashanah? Part of the Rosh Hashanah?
Part of the Rosh Hashanah.
Did he participate in the hostage taking?
Yes,
of course he was. Of course he was one of the hostage takers, amongst many others, including a lady. I forgot her name right now, but yes, all these people who are in charge. A lot of them were people who were involved in that. But the hostage taking was a big plan. It was a conspiracy plan, which I have shown in my film, The Golden Veil. And
that's right.
Although it may be shocking to Americans and those who love President Reagan, and I loved President Reagan, my belief right now is that most probably President Reagan did not know personally that the plan was to get rid of Jimmy Carter through the hostage crisis, and the hostage taking was a conspiracy to take American embassy workers hostage, keep them there for 444 days, destroy Carter to get rid of him, and Ronald Reagan won the presidency because of that. And as a secret sign, there were a number of secret signs there. They actually put the hostages on the plane on Reagan's inauguration day. And all this is shown in detail in my movie, The Golden Veil.
Okay, and I would urge everyone listening to this program to, now off of our website, HomelandSecurityUS.com, you can connect directly to to purchase the DVD, and I would recommend that DVD to everyone. John from Pasadena asked, wrong John. John from Kansas has asked whether you think, if you saw the movie Argo, and if there was any, if you did see it, which was apparently about the Iranian, embassy takeover, if that was true or if that was just propaganda.
Very good question, and I would like to. How much time do I have? Because I would like to talk about this.
We're going to extend we're going to extend it. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, of course I saw Argo. One of the reasons I went to see Argo was because one of the actors in Argo played in my movie The Golden Veil. Although in Argo he only had a very short role, but there was an actor in my movie. I won't say which one, but so that when you see the two movies, you may recognize the guy. In my movie, he played the role of a torturer inside Evin prison in Iran, and he's 7 foot tall. Yes, I saw Argo. There are many mistakes in that film. First of all, I was very upset at the beginning of the movie Argo for the things that they said against the Shah of Iran and my dear Empress who lives in exile. Those were a bunch of lies. And I have talked in detail about those lies in, I think I talked about it in Rick Wiles' interview. Yes.
Yes.
But what is wrong with Argo is this. Those hostages who escaped from the back door, they actually they went to the British embassy. And actually, I am not making this up. The British ambassador at that time, straight after Argo was released, the London's Daily Telegraph, there was an article there where he was so upset about this. What happened was that they actually stayed at the British embassy for one night. Now, it was the idea of the British ambassador for them to be moved to the Canadian embassy. It wasn't. That is a lie, saying that the British didn't want to help. Why did they want to send them to the Canadian embassy? Because the crowd were chanting death to America and death to Britain. So the British ambassador thought that they will probably storm the British embassy next. So for the safety of those 6 hostages, they sent them to the Canadian embassy. And then, of course, the Canadian embassy helped, and they gave them Canadian passports, and these people just flew normally out of the airport, and the Iranian authorities didn't even know for 2 weeks that they had left. There was no such thing like this film shows, a convoy chasing the plane. And this is Hollywood for you, garbage. This is Hollywood garbage for you. That was all total lies. And that guy, Tony Mendes, he was only in Tehran for a few hours. He didn't leave with the hostages, as the movie shows. There are so many things wrong with that film. When they stormed the embassy, there was no tear gas fired or anything like that. In my film, the way it's shown, that shows the truth. That they look out of the window, there's too much crowd breaking in, and the order is do not resist, surrender. There are so many things wrong with Argo.
Understood. Okay. Wow. So, okay. In fact, Sue from West Texas wants to know exactly where she can get a copy of The Golden Veil. Of course, we have it linked to Amazon.
It's very easy.
Go ahead.
It's very easy. Just go to Amazon and type The Golden Veil. Now, Amazon has taken over the publishing and distribution of this film. And this happened about 2 weeks ago. So you can actually buy Amazon DVDs. Amazon is the publisher and distributor. However, I also sell limited edition ones autographed by myself with custom designed cases, but those are expensive. Those are also on Amazon, but those are like $35. But Amazon DVDs are selling at $19.99.
Okay. All right. Very, very good. I just want to make sure that we had the proper link connected, and we do, folks.
The link that you have placed, very kind of you to have done that, but the link that you have placed takes them to the DVDs that I am selling. But if they just type the Golden Veil on in Amazon search, they will find the cheaper ones that are published and distributed by Amazon itself.
Well, we certainly want to be able, collectively and individually, we want to support your efforts to get the word out there, to get the truth out there. So the difference between the price certainly is well worth it, in my view. But
there is also a much cheaper option. Under the video of this interview, which I will post on my channel, on my YouTube channel this weekend, I will place all the links, because we also have digital download options for $6.99, and then the cheapest way is to download for 3 days and just watch it for 3 days for $2.99. So there's all these different options, but because although I want to recover the cost of this film for an independent film, this was turned out to be very costly because I had to purchase a lot of real news footage from CBS News, all this, the copyrights, and use them in this film, and the music compositions, and the cost was quite high. But although I would like to recover my cost, that is why that's why I'm charging money for this, because otherwise, believe me, I would have offered this film for free for the world to watch and learn.
Well, no, it's that important, and certainly you should never feel bad for attempting to. Look, we know how expensive things are, how expensive it is, and even when you're on a mission to tell the truth, you're certainly not good to anyone broke, and destitute. So we understand that. Margot from Ponca City, Oklahoma asks about all of the American presidents. Are they automatically accepted into the higher Eagles Club, or must they be brought in? Are some brought in? Well, I guess the opposite of that are any presidents not selected for this club?
Well, Jimmy Carter wasn't. John F. Kennedy's dad was. JFK himself, I don't think he was.
Okay.
But most presidents have to obey orders from the lodge above.
Well, interesting, because now this John from Pasadena asked, you mentioned JFK, and John from Pasadena asked, how did the Eagles play into, if at all, into the death of John F. Kennedy, into the assassination of John F. Kennedy? Were they in the planning? Go ahead.
Well, John F. Kennedy threatened this all secret societies. There is a video of that on YouTube. People can listen to his words, and he was going to he was challenging them. I mean, a president has to obey. A president has to obey them, not to challenge them. Unfortunately, to the best of my knowledge, that was the reason for the Kennedy assassination.
Okay.
And the way they operate, it's very clever. Mind control. All these terrorists, they are created. Believe me, it's a very complicated way. It will take me a whole hour to talk about that. But they are Oswald. Imagine as if Oswald was only a robot doing the job. Okay, it wasn't his mind that decided to kill the president. It wasn't that robot that decided. They were
right.
You know what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think as we talked about this, we have Dr. John Hall on our program, who's a highly credentialed medical doctor, talking about mind control, and of course, you know about the MK Ultra projects. That began in 1953, and of course continued through the Church Committee, and then, but it never stopped. So, Well, I guess the question that would lead into this would the shootings that we see, the mass shooting events, could one consider the mind control aspect into the perpetrators? I mean, could this be the result of mind control?
Well, no. A crazy guy who goes into a school and shoots little children, it doesn't serve political agendas of those in charge. No, but there are casualties of this that happen. This is a different subject. This is, I've got rid of my cell phone. I don't have a cell phone because I truly believe that sends certain vibrations into your brain, and that is actually we don't see those transmissions, we don't feel them, but they are affecting people's brains. They just turn them into. Science has reached certain points that a lot of it hasn't been released to the public. We don't know what's going on.
Fantastic.
And one of the things is that they are trying to reduce world population.
Yes.
The world population of 7 billion is considered to be way too high. Before World War I, there were 3 billion people on Earth, and they were saying it's overcrowded. Now we have 7 billion, and natural resources have declined, and there are deep problems, Mr. Hagmann.
Right. No,
and there are several.
Right.
There are many ways that they are using to give people cancer, to reduce population.
Interesting. And this, well, of course, we can see the Georgia Guidestones, about reducing the world's population. We know the plans of the Illuminati. We heard the words of Brzezinski yesterday during yesterday's program. We played that, so we know what the plans are. One last question before we cut you loose, let you take a break. You've been very gracious with your time tonight, sir. I want to thank you. But
it's been a pleasure, Mr. Hagmann. This has been the chance of my life to appear on Hagmann and Hagmann's show, to have my voice heard, because I was a nobody before.
Well, in the scheme of things, we're no one either. I mean, but you've got a terrific message out there. I mean, your message is very clear, very concise. Now, Bob and Maggie, the final question here. Bob and Maggie want to know whether it's your belief, based on your Christian conversion, if the Mahdi, the Imam Mahdi, would this be the Antichrist that's referred to in the Christian Bible, do you believe?
It could well be, because I can explain this in about 2 or 3 minutes. Imam Mahdi is supposed to be the 12th Imam of the Shia sect of Islam. He was a child who disappears, okay?
Right.
Now, they believe that he went down into a well in Iraq, not in Iran, in Iraq. He went down into a well and disappeared as a child. My father, God bless his soul, he said to me, what garbage this is. This may have been a little boy who went to drink from a well and fell in and drowned. But never mind. Let's say that. But what they believe is that he disappeared, and he's the one who's gonna come back, not as a child, but as a grown-up man on a white horse that comes when Armageddon takes place and takes you all to heaven. Now, the thing is that he disappeared in a well in Iraq, but Iranians they built another well in the city of Qom in Iran, saying this is where he's going to come out of. So he fell into a well in Iraq, and he's going to come out of a well in Iran Imam Mahdi must have dug a tunnel from Iraq to Iran. I mean, do you see why I turned Christian? Do you see why I just couldn't believe in all these lies? So,
of course.
Yes, to answer your question, you see, your listener's question, that was a very good question, because that's what they believe, that's what they want to happen, and so therefore that prediction could be quite accurate, yes.
Well,
Wow.
Siri, it has been a pleasure having you on our show and sharing your story with us. I don't know if you plan on doing radio again after this, but if you do, I want to let you know that you're always welcome to come back here to talk more about this and other endeavors that you are getting into and doing. And we really appreciate your time and you coming out of radio retirement to speak to our audience.
We are humbled by that fact. And one last thing, the book, The Golden Mask, will not be available or will be available?
No, Mr. Hagmann, as I explained, it will be available after my death.
After your death,
it will
okay.
be. It will be released. That I promise. That it will be released. And in that book, I managed to gather 63 names. 63 names. There are probably 1,000, but I was told there's less than 1,000 members. 63 names I have, and these names will shock the American people. That is what guarantees my safety. If I release the book today, tomorrow I will be dead. But that guarantees my safety. And I am pretty sure, Mr. Hagmann, that living in America, they cannot take me and torture me or waterboard me or all this to try and get information out of me. I'll shoot my brains out before it gets to that. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
It's been a great pleasure talking to you, and I thank the American citizens for listening to this show. I really thank them for their precious time for more than an hour.
Well, thank you so much, sir. God bless you. Stay safe, and let's keep in touch. We do want to know how you're doing. We certainly want to keep our tabs on you to make sure you're okay.
Thank you so much.
All right,
thank
sir.
you.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Folks, that was an incredible interview, Joe. Man, of course, folks, that was Bauman Nassiri. And if you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, we've got a link up to the Amazon page where he is selling his DVD, The Golden Veil. And, of course, we're certainly going to order that. Man. Joe, I'm just stunned on a number of levels.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to go back and listen to that interview. But yeah, there was a lot of when you get to that level and you're infiltrating or getting into these groups, your life can be taken for talking about certain things.
Yes, and remember, folks, remember me saying the very famous, or the phrase that sticks with me by my friend who's in the intelligence world: the lie is different at every level. If you apply that to the degrees, the Masonic degrees, the lie is different at every level. That is so true. And having spoken to my intelligence insider, my intelligence sources, plural, that statement is so true. So at one level, you're told, well, you had what we told you before. Yeah, we had to tell you that to get you to this level of understanding. The next level and the next level. And again, the lie is different at every level. And no, I can't. I was going to say something about that statement, but I can't. Just suffice it to say that in closed committee, that statement was has been said in closed committee hearings to people who don't have the intelligence clearance. Wow, what an interview. And Scott, as a young man of 13, we want to thank you so very much for pointing us to Mr. Nassiri and for certainly arranging that interview. Scott, you're an amazing young man. We thank you so very much. And ladies and gentlemen, I think if you go back and listen to what he said, I think it would be very important to do so.
Absolutely. We're going to go to a short break and come back with your phone calls. Hopefully the phones are much better condition than they were last night when we tried to take calls. 661-244-9839. For those of you who joined us late, next week, Dave Hodges on Monday, Standeo Tuesday, Reverend Michelle Hopkins Wednesday, also a show Saturday and Sunday, which I'll explain on the other side. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We'll be right back. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour of this Hagmann and Hagmann Thursday. This Thursday, October 3rd, 2013, as the days keep just flying by. And it is not the last hour. We got about 35 minutes left, and I don't want to waste any more time. We're going to go through the phones.
Wait a second. We do have housekeeping. Tomorrow, because of a situation with respect to the economy, monetary situation, a very special program, 8 to 11, involving the economist. You don't want to miss that. And of course, Saturday, we're having a special program on Saturday. It's not going to be during our regular time. The Yoda from the Magnified View is going to assist us in certain preparatory street survival tasks. And then on Sunday, Pastor David Langford and Steve Quayle, 8 to 11, we're going to be having a very spiritual program on Sunday. So it's kind of a working weekend. It's a little bit twisted. You'll have to kind of just watch our website. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com for the details as we continue to add now more information after the migration.
Tomorrow, Steve, Saturday, we're going to have a special show with Yoda as we were doing that on Friday. Sunday, Pastor Dave Langford and Steve will be on. Monday, Dave Hodges from the Common Sense Show. Been making tidal waves in the alternative media.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Joe, I spoke with Dave Hodges late into the night about his writings and asked point blank, Dave, really, and as much as weird as this sounds, do you believe the things that you're writing, they're incendiary, they're really cutting edge, but they're dire. I mean, these are dire warnings. Do you believe that this is where we're at here today? And he's got sources. He's got people who are informing him directly as we do. And yes, he believes this. So please check out the Common Sense Show, and even send them an email saying that we recommended them to him.
Yeah.
So.
And
please.
Then finally, Tuesday, Standeo as usual. And
yes.
Then Wednesday, for the first 2 hours of the show, Reverend Michelle Hopkins will be on. And we announced that at the beginning, but for those joining us late, just wanted to reiterate that. And we will have the promotions put up on our Facebook and our new Twitter page, Hagmann and Hagmann, or at Hagmann Report, which my dad made today, and I'm proud of him.
If you can believe that, yeah.
He can design a whole website, but can't text on his phone. It's kind of funny, but
yeah. Well, it's a blessing and a curse. But I'll tell you what. Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, and on the upper right hand corner, you'll see a Facebook and Twitter. We're trying to really hone everything into those two social networking venues rather than have multiple venues. It's just those two. All
right. To the phones, and I know Todd got cut off last night. Bad BTR problem or whatever it was. I don't see him on the board, but Todd, if you're listening and you do want to call in, we'll take your call. But in the meantime, we're going to go to 716 first. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Yes, hi. Oh, you guys have one of the best two shows in the world. You're really great. Far better than Brit Hume, Rush Limbaugh, and anything you can name. And I'm sincere.
Thank you.
I'm thoroughly convinced that the conspiracy has been around since the Garden of Eden. I don't think we should be surprised. I think it's abnormal to think that there's not conspiracy going on. Not that everything is, but most things that seem to make the media seem to be related.
I agree with that. You know, it used to be where I think more and more people are accepting of the fact that there's a conspiracy. There are conspiracies, whereas before, I mean, maybe 5-10 years ago, people would say, "Nah, there's no such things." But people are waking up. You're absolutely right. People are waking up.
Yeah, and according to, I've listened to there's a few hours of footage of John Todd from the 70s, who his stuff seems to pan out. And he said that years ago, kids used to be taught in history that things happened because people conspired it to. And now, that's not taught. And I believe that. But that's kind of my question is, there's got to be a way, a gentle but firm way, a prayerful way, to get our brothers and sisters to face the treason, the murder of our government, of agents and agents in our government. And I'm trying to tell people about this GridX drill coming up, or a FEMA 3 region drill, and being prepared in some of these other things. And these are, if they don't understand 9/11, they're thinking, it's just a drill, or, what's the big deal? So we got to really try to find a way to get our people to understand some of this stuff, like the paperclip, the CIA.
Right.
All you got to do is understand, a little bit of that, and you can see then everything else makes sense. Why should we be surprised at these events happening that are so tragic that it's on purpose?
One thing I like to do, caller. One thing I like to do is you hand people copies of the book. None dare call it conspiracy. Now I know you can find it on the internet as a PDF file. You can download it, but I like to hand them actual copies of the book. None dare call it conspiracy. It was written back in 1970, but it does a great job in explaining things. And I'm working on an essential library of short read books that you could basically hand to people and say, just read this and tell me what you think. And by reading those, I got to tell you, you'll have 90% of the background conspiracy understood by these people. So, but lovingly, So.
Yeah, that's great. I know Leonard Ulrich. He's a Canadian historian. He did a documentary that's on YouTube. That helped me get the bird's eye view. You don't have to know all the details of everything, but you kind of got to get some, at least like a 5th grade, 6th grade understanding, of what's at play here. And that's one thing that helped. But I also was going to ask you, have you heard anything about school drills in your area? Tomorrow, some of my kids in Catholic and public school are having evacuation drills going on. And I'm just a little... we have a direct line, not a direct line, but we have an informational asset in our school district here, where if something like that is going to take place at the school district level, he will call me directly, and it's usually 24 to 48 hours in advance, or even when he knows if it's a week out. And we've got nothing for tomorrow, at least in Western Pennsylvania. And one thing I caught on YouTube today was the Jason A with a capital A. He has like these really short few-minute clips, and one of them was showing the Pennsylvania Army National Guard base having a lot of vehicles on it. But another one was somebody spotted somewhere, and I don't know I'm not sure what region it was. Lots of signs saying martial law is in place, or something to that effect.
We had a caller. We've had callers, and Steve Quayle's put up alerts about that, but I have not seen a sign yet. And not that I doubt or think that people are making it
Right.
up, but I'm not sure that they're going to go around putting up signs that say martial law. But I could be wrong.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what. Look, I got to tell you, caller. Both Joe and I have had. I mean, I've had 28 years of experience as an investigator, specializing in a number of things, including surveillance. And even when you're undercover, sometimes it's very difficult to get pictures. So I understand. You're not going to just take out a camera and snap a photograph of a truckload of martial law signs. I understand it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do so, and you'd be doing that at your own peril. So it's
Right.
when we say this, we're only saying, boy, it would be great to have a photograph or some sort of affidavit of some affirmation of this. But I got a feeling we're going to find out soon enough. Don't you think so?
Yes. May we have the courage to stand with our senior vets like they have done in the last few days, and at least, be as bold and strong as they have been. And God bless all our soldiers. May they get courage and strength to rise up and do what's right.
Do what's right.
I really fear for them.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for the call. And you're absolutely right. We do hope that they do what's right. And the World War II veterans, my goodness, in wheelchairs going into the open-air monuments, how great is that? I mean, that's just fantastic.
Yes. Gives us courage and hope, right? Inspiration. All right. Well, God bless you guys. Thank you.
God bless you.
Yeah.
And folks, you know this, folks. Look, they're elderly, in wheelchairs, infirmed, and standing up to these punks, this punk government, this punk regime. God bless you, every one of you out there who has stood up to that metal gate at the World War II Memorial and said, move that gate, or gone through the gate. Thank you. Thank you on behalf of every American that don't have the guts to do that. Thank you. And Normandy, they weren't stopped at Normandy. No steel grate of a gate is going to stop them in D.C.
Absolutely. We're going to go back to the phones, and we're going to go to Todd, who was the problems for all the cutoff and static.
He's the guy who started everything.
I'm kidding. Todd, sorry about yesterday. Glad to have you back on today. Go ahead and tell us whatever you wanted to say yesterday, or if you got something new today.
Thanks, guys. Sorry about last night.
Would you start? What'd you do?
Well, hey, Doug, I heard you earlier on Rick Wild's great show, and I just want to commend you for the courage of bringing Mr. Nasiri in. That was a very worthwhile listen. I look forward to actually listening to it again and hearing his story of conversion. I was calling last night to just kind of piggyback on the last caller. As a veteran, the last couple of days have just been, very troubling for me. And so, I've gone and searched out my own feelings, my own thoughts, and I've asked for the Lord to kind of steady my thoughts and steady my nerves, because it's definitely upsetting. But, last time I had called in, I read you guys Psalms 23 for a Sailor from the book No Atheist. And I ran across something reading through it the other night, and this is what I was wanting to share, because I think it gets kind of to the root of the problem. And in 1787, so 226 years ago, Benjamin Franklin spoke to the Constitutional Congress, and he said, in the beginning of the contest with Great Britain, when we were sensible of danger, we had daily prayers in this room for divine protection. Our prayers, sir, were heard, and they were graciously answered. Have we now forgotten that powerful friend, or do we imagine that we no longer need his assistance? And I think that is the problem that we don't want to face sometimes as Christians, because God's Spirit is all around us. And because we're not necessarily in D.C. and because we're not in the political realm, I think it's easy for us to forget sometimes that they've kicked God out of that building. And so, the answer I think that we all try to find inside of us is, when we see these atrocities and we see disgraceful acts made against the most courageous men that gave us and continue to preserve our freedom, is to try to find hope, because we're filled with the spirit of hope. And so it's hard for us to try to accept that things aren't the way they should be, or that we can't change them. So, I just wanted to share that, because I know, the two of you guys have kind of opposing views, and I kind of saw both sides of what the pastor was saying, and that martial law is the answer. I agree with you, Joe.
Right.
I don't want any hostility, But Doug, I agree with you too, in that depending upon what his words actually meant, if martial law was from oath keepers such as myself and the other men that actually carry the banner of oath keeper, I would feel more comfort in a martial law environment under oath keepers than I would under calm rule with oath breakers.
Interesting point. And boy, we could go down some rabbit holes there, couldn't we? Thanks for bringing that back up again, by the way. but no, I think that discussion itself has merit. And really, what would we do in the event of a benign martial law for the purpose of cleaning house, for example? In the words of Franklin, or in the words of our founding fathers, pruning the tree of liberty, isn't that what they're talking about to some extent? How else would you prune that tree of liberty if our courts are closed off to us, if the normal courses of redress are closed off to us? How else would you go about doing it? It would be ugly. I certainly wouldn't want. I'm certainly not calling for it, and because it would be ugly. But nonetheless, how else would you do it?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's the question that continues to bounce into all of the veterans' minds of what would it look like. The only thing that's great for us is that there's lots of room at the foot of the cross, and as long as you guys continue to do what you do, and Doug, don't ever feel awkward quoting scripture. Joe, you do such a wonderful job, and that's the only thing that we can do. That's the thing that's guaranteed, is that there is no waiting line. There is no ticket that you need to be accepted at the cross. And as long as we carry that message, then who we choose to stand beside is a no-brainer.
I love that. There's always room at the foot of the cross. You've said a lot in that one statement. Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Guys, thanks for taking my call.
Much.
I won't keep you to take the next call. I appreciate you taking the call. God bless.
God bless you. Thank you so very much. Thanks for your service,
thanks,
too,
Todd.
by the way.
You bet.
Wow.
Bye-bye, guys.
Glad it worked out tonight with the phones.
Yeah.
Great call. And we're going to take some more here as we have some more time. If the blog talks to you, there it goes. Okay. Let's see. We're going to go to 317 next. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight? 317. Going once. All right, we'll come back to you if there's time. We're going to go to area code 503 next. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, you guys.
Hey.
How are you?
Well, last time we checked, we were okay. How are you doing?
Just
and
okay.
We're blessed.
Actually, we are blessed. We're doing fabulous. We want to say thank you. How are you?
I am too. So I can only say I am blessed. Well, I wish I could have called in and talked to your guest tonight. That would have been great. I hope he's still listening. Because,
I think he is.
I hope he is. Because I just want to encourage him to continue his walk. I know that I'm looking at what he must have hurdled over, and I'm like, wow, okay, we're talking about Masons, he was a Muslim, he decided to be a Christian, and he's coming out and in a world, and he's facing a lot of dangers, and I will be praying for this man, but I just want to give him one little thing, and that is, in order for him to really embrace Christianity, he needs to let go of the religiosity, I guess, that he's accustomed to. And that also he will, if he embraces the wrong Christianity, he will find that same thing. What he needs to look for is the Spirit of Christ and his relationship with Christ, who is our Savior. So,
I think that's a good advice for everyone.
Sure, but I really am feeling him, but I hope that he is able to get that.
We will. I do know that we will have a chance to speak with him directly later on. We'll convey what you said to him directly. At least I know Joe will. So to make sure that he gets that message. And thank you so very much for that.
There's a lot of people that would like to know where he stands on Christ too, because we don't easily trust somebody, if they don't speak of Jesus Christ. Does that make sense? So we want to know
very much
where he stands on that. So, but I'd love to hear him again. He's a very, very interesting caller. Guest.
I would recommend too his YouTube channel. If you just go on HomelandSecurityUS.com and copy his name. Rather than having me spell it, just copy his name down, put it into a search engine. You can find him on YouTube. Find his channel, and as well, and also listen to the interview he did with Rick Wiles from True News. That's TRUNEWS, Rick Wiles' program. And that was a fascinating interview.
I'm going to go listen to that. Well, thank you guys.
All right.
Good
thank
job.
you. God bless. Thanks.
God bless
Appreciate
you too.
All right.
You're doing great. Okay.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Have a great night. All right.
Our listeners are the best. Really, they are. And
yes, they are. And the kindest and the
very, very well
prayer warriors. They are very informed.
Yep.
And you couldn't ask for a better group of extremists. No, kidding. A better group of people.
A better group of targets. And by the way, I want to answer this one email directly. This is from Richard. Wants to know, why do you let people talk so long? Well, we get this question quite frequently, Richard. It's because this is your show, as much as it is ours, to the extent that if you've got something to say, don't you just hate it, Joe, when you listen to a program and the host just cuts off the person? I mean, right now, cut them off. And we find there's a lot of people out there who have got a lot of very important things to say. So, Richard, that's why.
All right.
There we go. All right.
We were going to keep going here on the calls. We got about 14 minutes left. 260, you're up next, and you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Very well. What's up?
We appreciate you, your fight and your heart and your bravery. I was struck tonight by the interview with Mr. Nassiri. I've listened to you guys for quite a while, and I've never called in. And quite frankly, the more that I've learned over the last several months, I've been praying myself, what can I do? And sometimes you feel like you're a little bit helpless. And so I've been just focusing on praying and asking God to reveal what it is that I might be able to do. And you guys are out there doing it every day, so we appreciate that. The reason that I called is Mr. Nassiri mentioned something that struck me, and it seems like in the media no one really pays attention to this fact, but JFK, in one of his last speeches, it may have been his last speech, he mentions in tremendous detail, in about a 4.5-minute speech, secret societies. He calls upon the American media to help him and speak specifically that we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence and infiltration instead of invasion. And, the American people these days are pretty confused. They don't know who to believe. I've got friends that I share things with, and they look at me like I'm crazy. But this simple 4-minute speech was possibly the reason why he was assassinated. And it doesn't get too much playtime, but Mr. Nasiri mentions it tonight just briefly, and it was kind of glossed over. And I thought that it might be important at some point for that speech to become a focus or a drumbeat.
We play that speech, just so you know, and we got banned actually for every broadcast where we play that speech. We get banned in Germany. Okay, I just want to let you know that, and we have to jump through hoops to get approved. However, we play that speech at least once, if not twice, per week. Now, just for clarification, for the purists out there, understand that secret society speech was cut down from a longer speech, and the words were not rearranged, except it was cut for time, not content. Okay. Now, some will say, well, it was taken out of context. If you search the text of the actual speech itself, you'll see what was removed from that speech. But yes, that's perhaps one of the greatest speeches about addressing the secret societies that you can get. Now, folks, you can do your own research on the editing of that speech, because it was edited, but I don't believe the editing affected
the message. No.
The message. Thank you. Just so
absolutely
for clarification. Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I did not realize that. Well, I'm glad that you guys are sharing that, because I think it brings some validity that in this day and age may not be easily seen. Most of us who talk about these things are looked at like we're crazy and conspiracy theorists, etc. And you guys know that. You deal with it all the time. But things are starting to become a little more plain to see, I think, and a little bit crazier too if you're watching the news every day. I grew up out east, guys, and the Lord got a hold of my life in 1992. I was raised Catholic and didn't have a close relationship with the Lord, but since that time, it just seems like, over the last several years, God is just giving more revelation of what's happening, and it can be scary, but we know what Jesus says. He says that we should fear not, for when you see these things, know that thy redemption draweth nigh. And the last two callers, Todd and the nice lady, talking about really who our strength is. It's going to be Christ. I don't know that, based on everything you guys talk about and everything I know now, that you could really defeat this type of an arsenal. It's so entrenched and it's so varied. Only Christ is going to be able to stand with us and for us. And I'll just leave you with that we really appreciate you guys, and we're going to be praying for you and lifting you up before the Lord and praying for safety for your families. And God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you, too.
Wow.
Have a great night.
What a great call. Wow.
They're always fantastic calls. And moving right along here, 304. Thanks for holding. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. This is a pleasure once again. I just have this is Phil from West Virginia, FEMA Region 3.
You're right there. We're kind of in the region together, Phil. Yep.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend that works at the Air Guard, and he's been off all week, and I got to talk to him earlier in the week, and we talked about some things, and he talked with my brother about some things that we haven't really discussed with him. It seems like it was a wake up call for him, and I guess the people that work on those bases and everything. And I have a concern with that, about the timing with this getting the people off the bases and having these drills come all at once. And he says there's 15, at least 15 refrigerated containers out there on the base that has never been there before, that are highly guarded. And he asked before he left what they were about, and no one would give him an answer. And so just things like that, make you wonder.
What do you think? Well, yeah, what do you think they're there for?
Well, it could be ammunition or something like that, because they have to keep that stuff cool. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not too far away. If you're in West Virginia, you're not too far away from, I'm going to say Butler County, Allegheny County area in Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, we're right across. I'm in Berkeley County, which is right here in the Panhandle. So we're not, we're right here in the belly of the beast, really.
Okay. Well, I've got to tell you, there is a government facility which is owned by the Department of Homeland Security. It was an old warehouse that was converted into a federal building, and most recently, I'm talking now within the last, when I say recently, I'll say 6 months, there have been reefer trucks that have been refrigerated trucks that have the trailers been left there at this facility.
Did you say reefer trucks?
Yeah, reefers. The refrigerator units on the back. Sorry,
you're young. Marijuana. Yeah.
Youngsters. Youngsters, right? You know what I'm talking about, caller, right?
I know.
So we're looking at this. In addition to that, this building has been sealed off with layered security along its perimeter. And we're looking and wondering, well, what's going on with this? And no one knows. No one in this area knows. In that area knows what this building is for. The fire department, which is a volunteer fire department, was told, don't respond to any. If you see smoke coming out here, don't bring your trucks. Don't come. You're not allowed on the property. It's this almost like this autonomous area in Allegheny, Butler County area. So we're watching this very closely, and also an airstrip was just put in here recently. So. What's that about? A lot of weird things taking place.
Yeah, I know. And, people are, and that's another thing. I mean, people are waking up to it, and they're, when it, like I said, he usually didn't talk about stuff like that, but he really has opened up, and that's a good thing. I wish more people would listen to shows like yours. I mean, you can listen to Hannity or all the they don't say nothing anyway. They're all politics, and that's just don't go very far.
Yeah. They don't dig deep into, and Sean Hannity might be the greatest person in the world. I don't know the man, but there comes a point in time, I believe, sir, that you've got to talk about things that are much deeper than the right-left issue, much deeper than Newt Gingrich or whoever, whatever the flavor of the day is. You've got to drill down deep into the truth. Otherwise, we're missing the bigger picture.
Yep, and I sure appreciate you guys, and I listen to you as often as I can, and I appreciate being able to come on the show and give a little 2 cents anyway. And I think we all do, and we do appreciate it, and we appreciate you, and can't wait for the weekend. That's I don't know that I've ever heard you guys go all weekends. That'll be interesting.
We haven't we haven't done
at least not live, no. And it will be fun. We really don't take days off anyway, so.
It sounds good. I mean, I can't wait. So you guys,
it's gonna be fun.
It's
gonna be a lot of fun.
All your guests and everything. I mean, you guys just have the Lord is working. That's all I know. He is working mightily, and He raises people up, and that's wonderful.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
God
guys.
bless you.
You have a great night.
You too. You too.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.
Well, that'll do it.
I wanted to correct a statement about taking days off. Last weekend, we did take a day off, or 2 days off, or I didn't see you for 2 days last weekend.
That's right. And that was just a wondrous 2 days. Well, this weekend is very special. Once again, we have a very specific program tomorrow with Yoda, or not tomorrow, Saturday.
Yeah.
Tomorrow with Steve Quill and V. V is going to address specifically the intricacies of the shutdown, what you need to know about the